Good morning, guys, my friends. Welcome to today's training on creating happy relationships beyond codependency. I'm Marshall Berkshire, and I help codependents create happiness in their life by helping them heal their trauma bond, discover and know who they are, and create happy relationships that are sustainable and enjoyable, that really fulfill them in their lives. So before we get started on today's topic about alleviating the fear of basically being heartbroken again, getting hurt again, I need to share this out to the community. The community is your safe haven here on the internet. You can find that on Facebook by either searching or Googling Thriving Beyond Codependency Community, or you can click the link above on Facebook, below on YouTube. If you're on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. And if you're on Instagram, check out my bio and click the link there and get instant access to free resources, trainings, and the community. So I'm going to get that shout out here. Boom. And that does not work the same as it used to. It's driving me crazy sometimes. Okay, we're going to just do it this way then, because Facebook is changing things. All right, good morning. Let me know how you're doing in the comments below. Let's jump into this. So we've been focusing on creating happy relationships. This is one of those big steps beyond codependency, right? Because dominantly this last year we've been focused on knowing who we are, healing the trauma bond, and getting more in contact with the reality of our own innocence. And now we're moving into that creation of relationship that really matters to us. And I've found over the years, in a number of different relationship systems that I've taken and that I've been trained in, that they don't really address the core needs that codependents have in creating relationships. They assume that you come from a history where you already know these things, like, fundamentals of compatibility and your needs and your wants and your capacities, core values in relationships, things like that. They're not really enlightened on those. So today we are going to talk about alleviating the fear of getting hurt again. And that's one of the biggest barriers we have in relationships, is the fear of being betrayed, being hurt, being abused, repeating a past relationship experience. And when I was looking at designing the relationship strategy, and when I was going through my own experience with this is the first thing I had to really navigate, is this fear of getting hurt again. And a couple of ways in which I navigated this really fundamental to your success in creating happy either friendships, romantic relationships, business relationships, spiritual relationships, whatever it might be. And it starts, first of all, with a willingness to acknowledge your experience as valid and real. Because what we are pretty much conditioned to do in the world these days with our emotions is bypass the emotion. That's like, oh, you're scared. Well, muscle through it. Fear the fear and do it anyway, and just ignore it, or give it a chance, try a different thing, blah blah blah. Really what we need to do is stop and acknowledge what we're feeling. We're going to give it permission to exist. So there's this thing I teach in From Addiction to Connection and the Happiness Strategy and other courses I teach, is that ALI, acknowledge, legitimize, and integrate. So I acknowledge what I feel. I acknowledge it's scary to get out there again, right? It's scary to be exposed, to be vulnerable, to take a risk. And then that gives you a chance to legitimize your experience. Legitimization means, wow, of course I feel what I feel. Look what I've been through. It's a change from, wow, I feel this and I need to fix it. That isn't going to get you down the road. What's going to get you down the road is going, of course I feel scared. I've been really hurt in the past. I've screwed up, or they've screwed up, or I don't know what I'm doing, or I don't trust myself, or I've had these reasons that things have gone wrong for me. Like, for instance, doing this, just getting on camera for me still causes me some anxiety. And that's really understandable, because in the past, when I have been me, especially as a young child, I was made fun of a lot. I was humiliated. I was deliberately put into situations that would humiliate me, and because of my nativity, I was exploited and manipulated that way. So I get a little anxious here. People are going to think I'm stupid, or going to make fun of me, or they're going to use this against me, things like that. It's very interesting how that comes up. And when that comes up, I'm like, of course I feel this way. Look, I've been through things where that actually happened. And what that does is it brings a calmness to the body. It brings a kindness to that pain, a compassion to that experience. And then, depending on its intensity meaning 0 not being there and 10 being on fire, I can rate it. Because I find that at this point, once I know what I'm feeling and its intensity is and I'm legitimized it, if I'm still over a 6 on that scale, I've got some trauma work to do. I've got something to look at and really work with. But if it's underneath that, I can begin to invite an exploration into a new experience, as well as, and this is your next step, allowing yourself to register that you're safe. Okay? There is 0 dating systems, 0 relationship systems I've encountered out there that do anything with safety. Period. I just have not encountered it. Probably is out there. But safety is essential to building a relationship. It's essential to getting out there and experiencing yourself with others and others with you. So how do we build safety? This comes in contact with something called attachment. So in children, we were little babies and infants and toddlers and, children. And then in the teenage years and adult years, we are forming what's called attachment. So for an infant and a baby, attachment is a psychosomatic experience with a parent. It's how the child begins to understand themselves in the world, understand who their parent is, who the world is. It's how they find safety. They find what's called safe haven and safe base. The parent becomes the protector of the territory so that the child can go out and explore in the world and discover who they are in the world, and then come back to a shelter where they can be cared for and understood, valued, and protected. That's what attachment's about. It's about being able to discover who you are while having a base or a reference point in your world that can provide shelter for you. And make that really simple, but that's what it often breaks down to. And that's what provides a toddler or a baby or a child or a teenager or even an adult the safety to go out and explore and discover something, make mistakes, and experience life and take risks. Now, if we grew up in a codependent family, we didn't have shelter. We didn't have safety. We had chaos. We had neglect. We had abuse. We had threat. We had danger. So that right there is where we need to look at real deeply as to what do we need individually in our attachment to feel safe sharing ourselves with others. This is the biggie. This is how we start to alleviate the fear of getting hurt again, is by going in and repairing the attachment injuries that we've been living through. So attachment injuries may happen with parents, they may happen with siblings, friends, partners, past partners, things like that. And often this is where trust is violated, where abuse has occurred, where abandonment has happened, things like that. We're going to get in there and we're going to start to understand where we're at in our attachment system so that we know what we need to create safety for ourselves, then to take the safe risk of discovering someone else and the safe risk to bond again with another human being. This is the real work in relationship prep, because I don't recommend going into the dating scene or developing relationships till you have a grasp of where you're at with your attachment. So attachment can form into 4 different responses. So you have what's called secure attachment, and this is about, hey, I get connected, I get understood, I feel safe, they're not going to leave me, they're not going to abandon me, that I trust them, they trust me. We have a safe reciprocal relationship with sensitive things like conflict and intimacy, needs and wants. And this is based on a repetitive pattern of experience with this individual, or we can rely on them. We can trust them. We know that they'll take accountability. We know that they empathize. They follow the 8 relationship bare minimums, because that creates secure attachment to the T. They're very faithful to those things just based on who they are. So that's secure bond or secure attachment. The next one is anxious attachment. This is where the individual learned that the parent is not necessarily reliable in meeting their needs or wants or being attuned to them, so that there's a question about what's going to happen. Are they going to respond to me? How are they going to respond to me? Are they going to be available? Right? So this creates anxiety in the individual because they're scared about losing their connection with that person. So anxious people tend to chase. They tend to try to get closer to the person and sometimes try to control or absorb them so that they can alleviate that anxiety. The way we start to work with this particular kind of attachment is to lean into trust in the space in the relationship after we've determined that the other individual is showing up in a reliable way. This is the trick here. Now, if you're just dating someone, you've known them for maybe 80 hours, 100 hours or something, and you're already having anxious attachment and a craving for them, then there's a codependent loop in there. You've got a fantasy going on, and you've got some internalized beliefs about your own value and your own safety and worth that are attached to this relationship, and that's where you're going to need to go into some fantasy work and some attachment work to help evolve that into more of a secure connection for yourself and with yourself. Now, the next one is what's called avoidant attachment. Generally, avoidant attachment is the person is not emotionally available. They're distant. They're aloof. I mean, they may come on strong and very intense and very focused at first, and then they just pull away and become cold and non-responsive and unavailable, and you're left like, oh, what did I do? What happened here? That'd definitely be the avoidant approach happening. And the thing with avoidance, people who have avoidant attachment, is these are individuals who've been smothered for emotional affection. They have been turned into the parent for a parent. They have been used and manipulated for their emotional capacity to help regulate someone else. They're very, very scared about losing themselves in the relationship. They value their autonomy over connection because that is their reflex against being absorbed and smothered. Now, one of the ways we start to work with avoidant attachment is to lean into connection while keeping self. This is a delicate practice here. Not an easy practice, I'll tell you, because I deal with it myself. And the other thing for avoidance is we're not very well attuned to the subtle, small, gentle, lively feelings of love and connection that feel safe and secure. We're used to intensity or numbness. Anxious attachment are used to intensity and then fear, and that space, that emptiness. And so we're running from basically the same thing as the fear of being betrayed in these emotional bonds we're trying to develop. So that's one way we start to work with avoidant attachments, to lean into connection while recognizing our safety and our individuality and continuing to be ourselves. This is kind of like the deep work of codependency right here. So that's what we get into with the From Addiction to Connection course, or the upcoming Heal Codependency strategy. That's a new course that'll be coming out here pretty quick. That's even where the innocence practices that will be coming out will be helping us in those things. Now you'll have a fourth type of attachment. And that attachment is called disorganized or complex or confused, depending on what person or expert you're referencing. Trick here with this is it's both anxious and avoidant. They're scared, they want contact, and they're scared of being smothered, so they pull away. This is like a child coming into the room to ask for something and then leaving. And then coming into the room and wanting to ask for something and then leaving again. It's this in and out, push-pull, yin-yang, yo-yo kind of experience, that the person's really wrestling with their need for connection and security, and their need for individuality. They think that they are opposites, that they cannot be compatible, that they are in conflict with each other. And so typically people with disorganized attachment have a high level of rigidity in connections. They are very aloof, very scared. They tend to just be loners. Very similar to the avoidant element, because the avoidant element feels safer to them because attachment's been so violent in their past for them. So alleviating the fear of getting hurt again has to do with dealing with the attachment rupture, the attachment traumas and pains we've been through, so that we gain more capacity to be available. Now, availability means, or rather, availability includes the possibility of rejection and rejecting someone. So being rejected and doing the rejection. That's important work, because when we deal with rejection, we're dealing with a filter, not a judgment. Okay? Most of us have been conditioned to think that rejection is a judgment on our value. We're no longer worth knowing, loving, or keeping. There's something wrong with us. That's why that person didn't love us. This is the internalization of rejection. It's the personalization of this means something about me. What we can do is we can look at it at a situational, pragmatic view to help us reframe it and go, okay, what if rejection is literally just a filter about compatibility? Rejection says this person doesn't fit well in my companionship area, or my intimacy area, or the support or play components of compatibility and connection. What if it's more about that than it is about our worth? This is where we get into deep worth work, where we get into retrieving and activating our innate value and anchoring to that as our center of reference of point, our central reference point for who we are, or for what value we truly be in the world, so that we can interpret rejection through that lens rather than through the lens of it being a value statement. It's like, wow, this is just a utility. That doesn't mean rejection's not going to hurt, but it does mean that we approach it differently. Like, I've been rejected by people whom I had a lot of feelings for. Some of those experiences were really, really crushing because I thought it meant something was wrong with me. I wasn't really worth it. But as I grew in my value and I autonomized my value from their approval and moved towards just understanding or discovering connection and understanding of them and seeing if it worked, rejection became more about grief, about the sadness of what I wanted and hoped to have with them not being there anymore. So it was more about the situation and about what was lost in the experience through rejection, or the potential that didn't occur, rather than this internalized judgment that, oh wow, they don't like me or want me, so I am thus not wantable, likable, or deserve love. See the differences there? But this is deep work, and it has to do with attachment work, and it has to do with coming back to value within ourselves. Because in codependency, we tend to seek our value through the approval of other people. We think approval equals love. We think approval equals value. Approval equals belonging, and it doesn't. Approval is someone's judgment about you. It's a worthless thing. And I know that sounds really simplistic, but if we look at it from the point of view of like, if approval is a judgment, then what is acceptance? What is belonging? What is love? Well, that's an embrace of you as you are. It's not an endorsement of you. It's not a permission of you, giving you permission to exist. It's a recognition of you. It's like, wow, I see your beauty. I see who you are. And I like you. It's cool. Thanks for being you. Now, some people aren't going to like who we are. Especially if we're coming from this point of view that they're not an authority, so their approval is irrelevant about who I am, then it becomes more like, well, cool. That sucks, but I'll move on. That's important. It's important because it allows us to stay autonomized from their approval. It allows us to to really occupy the space of our value as a human being rather than someone that's trying to earn value by pleasing somebody else. That's one of these deeper works that we do, both in the relationship strategy and the other courses that I teach. Because it is about our worth. It's about the discovery of our value, and then it's about the embodiment and living of that value in the world. All right. So Stephania shares, I always get ghosted lately in relationships, not even after 3 days because I'm direct, but people seem to be so scared of relationships overall, it's hard to repair these things. Well, if you're being, I can understand that, because if you're being ghosted and you're being direct, it sounds like they're obviously not comfortable with the directness. That is dating. Dating is a filter. It is a painful game of rejection and having to endure it. So yeah, you're seen that a number of times, been through that a number of times. All right, so alleviating the fear of getting hurt again is really about embracing your need for safety, working out the attachment trauma and injuries you may be experiencing in that, and then finally becoming willing to be rejected and to reject others through a different point of view. And that is that rejection is a filter, not a judgment. And the fear goes down. And this is like the onset stage of relationship. You're welcome. Stephanie, you're welcome. So let's say you get engaged in a relationship, like you found someone who's really into you, you're into them, you guys have chemistry, you've determined that, they are demonstrating the 8 relationship bare minimums in a very consistent fashion. Now you're going to start to discover or explore a relationship with them. That fear is going to probably come up again, because as we get more emotionally close and bonded with another human being, it's going to activate whatever unresolved internalized experiences we have with attachment, with bonding. And it'll come back to regulating your attachment, leaning into safety, first safety for yourself, and then establishing safe. Is this relationship safe? Is this person safe for me? Are they trustworthy? And then little by little, or maybe if you have capacity, a little more than a little, share and see what happens. Lean in and see what happens. Because the way attachment is healed is it's actually evolved from the place you start at. Let's say you start out with anxious attachment. It's evolved into secure attachment through the real world experience with this person. Because attachment is an experience-based thing. It isn't just a mental concept. It's something that is active and alive in what we are in our relationships. And so we become more secure as we work through building our safety and vulnerability and trust in the relationship with that person. At least that's how I've done it, and I've had other clients do it very successfully. You're going to have to work with trauma if it shows up. So that would be EMDR, that could be somatic experiencing, that could be TRE, that could be the closure technique that I offer. It is all about, though, regulating that nervous system, regulating the attachment system, and allowing yourself to be seen and secure more and more and more. Now, I recommend we start out first, especially depending on where you're at. Let's say you've not done attachment work. I would focus on that first while working through understanding what your needs and wants are in the relationship. And the relationship strategy is going to lead you through these things, because we have tools for relationship or for attachment management, because we have what's called the attachment distress regulator. We have what's called the attachment connection regulator. We have specific tools for avoidant and anxious attachment management and growth. So it's going to be a major component of the course there to help you grow. So Renee says, I have a hard time rejecting others or breaking up with someone because I hate to hurt their feelings. Yeah, this is you internalizing their pain rather than respecting what is honest in the relationship. See, people are going to hurt, and that's okay because, sorry about that, desks, right? And that's going to hurt a little. There's a difference between harm and hurt. So in relationship development, especially in dating, or we're going to reject someone, we're going to turn someone down, yeah, it's going to hurt. But that is a healthy thing to do because it's the honest thing to do. Not doing that is actually the harmful act. This is why we come back to the two fundamentals with all codependents need to work on is honesty about their experience and then choosing their well-being. Because when we pair those together, you're going to say no to people. And that is a loving act, because if they don't fit with you and your well-being and happiness, you don't fit with theirs either. They may be over the moon with you, but because you're not in the same category they are, it's not compatible. So not rejecting them is the harmful act. It's not kind. The kindness is saying this doesn't work for me. And then allowing them to have the feelings they have. Because the feelings they have about the rejection are their teachers, their lessons, their mentors. They're not your responsibility. You can empathize with the impact while maintaining your decision and moving forward from there. It's important for us to become willing to allow people to feel hurt with the choices we make, because that is how we gain the freedom to make the choices we need to make for our well-being. Because if it's not happy and well-being for me, it isn't for them either. In relationships, it has to work for everyone involved, or it doesn't work for anyone involved because it's not honest at that point. That's actually something I can add to the course because it's not slated in there, but I'll add that. Okay, guys, I appreciate you. The relationship strategy starts in 4 days. It's this coming Sunday. It is a beta program. It's a pilot program. And currently we have 16 modules. It's like we're going to have 17 modules with this inspiration here. And I'm designing this a little differently than I have other courses because it's organic. I want to see what it is. I have an idea of what's required, but sometimes I'm wrong, right? Like I just discovered that. Renee brought this brilliance into the world. Boom. So it's going to grow as it grows. It's going to allow you to support you in creating and sustaining happy relationships through 3 specific steps. 1, you got to understand what your what and your how are, what those are, because my model for relationship is what, how, who. So I got to understand what I need, what I want, how I want that need and want, and then discover people who align with it. And that creates the organic result of happiness. So that's step 1, is understanding your what and your how and the 10 fundamental compatibilities in relationships. Second step is discovering how to discover other people. This is where we get into the practice work, identifying how people show up, looking at patterns of behavior, sensing into our bodies, being aware of our intuitive take on things, being aware of red flags, yellow flags, green flags, things like that. This is where boundary work comes in, keeping ourselves anchored in our bodies, stuff like that. And then step 3 is once you've found someone who's showing up in a reliable way that you have chemistry with and you would want to develop a more relationship with, step 3 teaches you how to grow the relationship into happiness. So that's more of that discovery practice. So the course is simple that way, but it's going to have it's going to be big. So, because relationships aren't something you can just master in 6 weeks. You need time, you need practice, and so this thing is going to go on probably for about 4.5 months. So it's a long process. But the beauty of with all my courses is that they're always go at your pace. They're taught at least twice a year live. So next time this will be taught is in August of 2021. You get lifetime if you buy the lifetime. Well, with this, there's only the lifetime option. When you enroll, you get lifetime access to live mentoring with me twice a week on Tuesdays and Thursdays. You get access to me via email and through the community. We got your back in this. I want you to succeed. That's why I create the thing. I love results and I love outcomes because that's the point. I didn't get into this because, I'm going to be a coach or like make the billions of dollars. It's more like I want results. I want to create things that work for you guys. These are the things that have worked for me. I have tested these things out with private clients and they have gotten results. I got 54 marriages on this thing. So I think that's a good little stat on that. Now I want to share it more with you guys, find out what it does, because it is a beta course, so it's going to change. So yeah, that's how I do it. So The link is above on Facebook to enroll, below on YouTube. If you go there and you're like, wow, I really want this, but I can't afford this, please reach out to me. On that page is a link called Community Answers. Click it, send me an email. Let's talk about what you can afford. We'll get you in, okay? Because money is important, but it's secondary to the bigger purpose of getting you to your well-being and your happiness. So there you go, guys. I appreciate you. Remember that you're worth knowing, loving, and keeping. Go out there, explore what you need to understand for your own sense of safety before you jump out into the world of dating or creating relationships. That matters more than the relationship. You deserve to be safe, and you deserve to have the power in which to create that safety in your world. Okay, guys, my friends, have a good day. Be safe out there, and I will see you in our next training video.